if you break your arm, an X-ray gives you this really clear binary answer.
Right. You just look at the film.
Yeah, you look at the film, you see the jagged white line, the doctor says, well, there it is, broken.
It's very cut and dry.
It is. It's clean, it's visible, and frankly, I mean, it's comforting. We really like our injuries to be easily categorized and mapped out.
Oh, absolutely. We want a clear diagnosis.
Right. But when you step into the world of, relational trauma or psychological conditioning and emotional recovery, that X-ray machine is entirely useless.
Oh, completely useless.
You just can't take a snapshot of a human soul and say, yes, right there. There is the exact fracture in your ability to trust. The diagnostic landscape of a broken spirit is completely invisible.
It is the absolute definition of muddy waters. I mean, healing from severe emotional subjugation, it just isn't a straight line.
No, not at all.
And it certainly isn't visible on a scan. It is this wildly complex, deeply internal, and honestly, often contradictory process.
Yeah, contradictory is a good word for it.
Because you're essentially dealing with an injured nervous system trying to repair itself using the very tools that were, damaged in the first place.
That's such a wild concept to think about, which actually brings us perfectly to our mission for today. So welcome to another deep dive.
Today, we are taking a really fascinating route through this unseen landscape we're talking about.
I'm really looking forward to this one.
Me too. We have a stack of lyrics in front of us from a debut album that is, and I say this without any hyperbole, a masterclass in narrative storytelling.
It really is. It's incredible.
We aren't looking at this as just some, collection of pop songs. This album plays out like a highly structured psychological novel.
A 3-act novel, really.
Exactly. It tracks this really intense, visceral narrative arc. It moves from the absolute subjugation of a toxic, lifelong relationship down through the wilderness of spiritual exhaustion into a profound awakening.
And then finally, it culminates in the discovery of healthy, unconditional love. Right. Okay, let's unpack this. We are going to move through this album track by track, exactly as the artist intended.
Because the order really matters here.
It totally matters.
Yeah.
She has deliberately provided us with a chronological map of her own psychological and spiritual healing.
What's fascinating here is the sheer scale of the journey she documents. I mean, by the time we reach the end of this deep dive, you are going to understand not just the story this artist is telling, but the intricate psychological mechanisms of survival.
Right, the actual psychology behind it.
Yeah, the devastating reality of trauma bonds and the immense resilience required to genuinely rewrite your own neurobiology.
It's a huge undertaking.
It is. And the lyrical skill she uses to articulate this is just staggering because she isn't just describing feelings, she is describing the physiological and spiritual architecture of recovery.
Yes, I love that phrasing. And as we navigate this map, I want to invite you, listening right now, to reflect on your own transitions.
That's a great point.
Because, the specific details of this artist's story belong to her, obviously. But the underlying mechanics, the experience of losing your identity, the desperate search for solid footing, and the sheer terror of daring to trust another human being again.
Oh, that terror is so real.
Right. Those are universally human experiences.
They really are. They're the quiet battles most people fight entirely behind closed doors.
Exactly. So, to truly appreciate the light at the end of this tunnel, we really have to understand the absolute darkness of the starting point.
We have to go into the crucible.
We have to enter the crucible.
Yeah.
The first phase of this album establishes the environment of toxic love, and we begin with a track titled Baby Girl.
Which is such a deceptive title.
It really is. Because when you read these lyrics, it doesn't read like a ballad. It reads like a manual for indoctrination.
It is deeply uncomfortable.
Very.
And it's deliberately so. It establishes the baseline of what psychologists refer to as a subjugation schema.
A subjugation schema. Okay, because the lyrics that hit the hardest for me are these repetitive directives. Things like, good girls live to please and to serve. Or sleep at his feet.
Ugh, sleep at his feet. It's rough.
And forget your dignity, standards, and pride. And then the phrase, be a good baby girl, is just repeated over and over like a chant.
Oh, right, like an indoctrination.
Yeah. I was thinking about it like a doll being kept in this suffocatingly small box. It feels less like a term of endearment and more like this hypnotic command that she's just been forced to internalize.
That's exactly what it is. And she explicitly states she is, quote, aching for love that's finally real, but simultaneously acknowledges she is surviving on scraps.
Surviving on scraps. Yeah.
That juxtaposition is the hallmark of profound cognitive dissonance.
Can you explain that a bit more, the cognitive dissonance part?
Sure. So she isn't naive, right? She is highly aware of her reality. She knows she is taking scraps, and she knows it requires this active suppression of her true self.
Right, which she describes as holding their tears behind their eyes.
Exactly. But the mechanism keeping her trapped isn't a lack of awareness, it's a primal, overpowering fear. She sings, "If I want him to stay, never say no, or he may go away."
So she knows it's awful, but the alternative feels worse to her.
Right. The threat of abandonment has been weaponized so effectively that it just overrides her fundamental human need for dignity.
She is essentially erasing her own identity to ensure proximity to the person erasing it, which is just, it's so heavy.
It is incredibly heavy.
And it raises the question of how someone sustains that state of passive subjugation. Like, we have an inherent survival instinct to escape pain, yet she is actively choosing to sleep at his feet.
Right. Why doesn't she just leave? People ask that all the time.
Exactly. And the answer to that paradox hits us in the very next track, Addiction, where the narrative pivots violently from psychological conditioning to chemical dependency.
This is where we see the biological hook of the abuse cycle.
Okay, the biological hook.
Yeah, the subjugation in the first track is the psychological framework. But the second track is the neurochemical reality keeping that framework in place.
Got it. Because here's where it gets really interesting for me. When I first read Addiction, the tonal shift genuinely gave me whiplash.
Oh, it's a massive shift.
We go from this quiet, shrinking presence who doesn't dare have an opinion to this ravenous, shaking desperation.
Visceral.
So visceral. The lyrics turn into this, my mind goes blank, plunged in darkness, my body shakes.
Yeah.
She asks, was that pleasure or a chill?
Yeah.
And describes being left in pieces, broken on the floor. I mean, this doesn't sound like love. This sounds like a horror movie.
It really does. And you're hitting on the core reality of a trauma bond here.
A trauma bond.
Yes. In highly toxic relationships, lust and dependency frequently masquerade as love. What she's describing here isn't emotional connection. It is intermittent reinforcement.
What does that mean exactly? Intermittent reinforcement.
So, when an abuser subjects you to extreme highs and extreme lows, it creates a powerful cortisol and dopamine loop in the brain.
Oh, well.
The abuser literally becomes the drug, and the victim becomes chemically addicted to the cycle of relief.
Okay, so when she sings, it affects my body. Madness sets in, and I'm craving your presence. She's describing actual somatic withdrawal.
Without a doubt, it's physical. She says, "I will always need what only you can give," which is the ultimate lie an addicted brain tells itself.
Right, because nobody's the only source of anything.
Exactly. But the isolation tactics we saw in Baby Girl guarantee that he is her only source of relief from the very pain he is causing.
That is so twisted.
It is. Furthermore, her nervous system is so hijacked, so fundamentally dysregulated, that she can no longer distinguish between genuine physical pleasure and the physiological terror of a threat response.
Wow. Which explains why she asks, was that pleasure or a chill?
Precisely. The chill of fear and the heat of lust have become neurologically intertwined.
That is just, it's horrifying, honestly. It's entirely transactional and entirely destructive.
Yeah.
She says, I drive you mad with desire, another fix to make me higher.
Yeah, she recognizes it as a fix.
But as with any addiction that leaves a person, broken on the floor, there is a physical and emotional limit. The body and mind simply cannot sustain that level of constant dysregulation without eventually collapsing.
And that collapse is the catalyst for track 3, Broken.
Yes. And honestly, as a reader, as a listener, I felt immense relief here. Like, finally, the chains are breaking.
This track is the hinge upon which the entire first act turns. It is the birth of accountability, which, honestly, in the context of trauma recovery, is a profound psychological milestone.
I was reading up on locus of control recently. It feels like this moment is exactly that, a massive shift in her locus of control.
Absolutely.
She opens by declaring, I don't want to be broken anymore. I'm breaking these chains as I walk out the door.
Right, it's action-oriented now.
Yeah, she separates the illusion from the reality, stating, all the promises you made just faded to dust. I wanted love, but got nothing but lust.
A huge realization.
It is. But the line that really anchors this, the one that gave me chills, is, the only thing holding me down was me.
Yes. If we connect this to the bigger picture, that specific lyric is her reclaiming her agency.
Reclaiming her agency.
For years, she believed he held all the power. As long as he was the drug she couldn't live without, she was a victim without choices.
Right.
By acknowledging her own complicity that she patiently waited, hoping you'd change her out, she executes a massive psychological pivot.
Because if she was the one holding herself down,
Then she inherently possesses the power to stand herself up, is the complete rejection of the baby girl persona.
it's incredibly empowering.
Mhm.
She isn't waiting for a rescuer anymore. She says, you had me. You lost me. I'm no longer yours. I'm no longer accepting what you were giving, no longer quiet enough.
She's shattering the conditioning.
Completely. But as anyone who has studied trauma knows, escaping a war zone doesn't mean you instantly know how to live in peacetime.
Oh, definitely.
You don't just walk out the door and suddenly possess this, like, perfect toolbox of healthy coping mechanisms. You build a fortress to survive the immediate aftermath.
And that fortress is documented in the final track of this thematic grouping, Fierce.
Let's talk about Fierce.
This is a fascinating psychological document because it so perfectly captures the armor of hyper-independence.
Yeah, I was thinking about this track like a phoenix rising from the ashes, but a phoenix armed with these really sharp talons.
That's a great visual.
We know hyperindependence is a classic trauma response.
Right.
It's the pendulum swinging from complete enmeshment to complete isolation.
Right.
But what strikes me about these lyrics is how aggressively she weaponizes it. The lyrics are pure adrenaline. She sings, controlled and manipulated, I was constantly liberated.
Which is such an interesting paradox.
Yeah, and don't waste your time. I won't let you in. No one will ever save me because nothing changed me. And then this core anthem. I am all I need. I am fierce.
It sounds so empowering.
It does on the surface. But underneath the bravado, I couldn't help but wonder, is she truly healed here, or is she just heavily barricaded?
This raises an important question about the nature of early-stage recovery. And I agree with your suspicion. She is not healed here. She is surviving.
Just surviving, yes.
Yes. Interdependence, which is the ability to rely on others while maintaining your own autonomy, is the healthy goal.
Okay, interdependence.
But in Baby Girl, she had zero boundaries and relied entirely on external validation. In Fierce, her nervous system has learned that vulnerability equals subjugation, that needing someone equals being abused.
Right, because of what she just went through.
Exactly. So the only way she can guarantee her safety is to need absolutely no one.
Wow. So when she says, don't want acceptance or approval, I welcome your removal, it's a completely defensive posture.
100%.
The rage she expresses, words that cut me till I bled, pain that left me almost dead is entirely valid. I mean, she survived something horrific. But building a wall to keep enemies out inherently keeps out connection, and community and light.
Absolutely. Hyper-independence is incredibly isolating, and it demands a massive expenditure of energy.
Oh, I can imagine.
You are constantly maintaining the perimeter, constantly assuring yourself that you are all you need, all while your human biology is actually hardwired for connection.
You simply can't run an engine on pure rage and defensive adrenaline forever. The fuel eventually runs out.
It always does.
Which transitions us really beautifully into the second phase of this journey, the wilderness and the divine. Because the walls she built in Fierce eventually block out all the light, leading to a profound emotional and spiritual exhaustion.
Yeah, a real dark night of the soul.
Exactly. And we see this breakdown in track 5, Cry Out.
The transition from Fierce to Cry Out represents the shift from external battling to internal surrender.
The exhaustion in these lyrics is just so heavy. You can feel it. She's completely run out of gas. She sings, I've been lost, I've been broken, chained by my fears, struggled in darkness.
It's very raw.
It is. And what caught my attention here is the contrast in the imagery. Because back in Broken, she sang about breaking chains as she walked out the door. She escaped the physical abuser.
Right.
But here she realizes she is, quote, chained by my fears. She left the toxic relationship, but she is still trapped in her own dysregulated mind.
Which is the harsh reality of trauma recovery. I mean, changing your geography doesn't immediately change your neurology.
That is so true.
The psychological armor of hyperindependence turned out to be incredibly heavy, and she realizes she is sinking.
She literally says, standing on quicksand, I pray for solid ground. And she finally asks for help. Lift me up, Lord, and help me stand.
Yes.
It's a complete 180-degree turn from I am all I need.
It is the ultimate spiritual pivot. She recognizes the limits of human strength, specifically her isolated strength.
Right.
By crying out, I'm longing for your love to change me now, she takes the first terrifying step toward true vulnerability.
But she doesn't go to another person.
Exactly. Because human beings are still far too dangerous for her to trust. So she wisely directs that vulnerability upward toward a higher power. She shifts her reliance to an entity that is inherently safe.
That makes total sense. She's moving away from the quicksand of her trauma responses and seeking the solid ground of unconditional love. But, spiritual journeys, much like trauma recovery, aren't a linear ascent to enlightenment.
Oh, definitely not.
You don't just pray once and suddenly achieve perfect peace. And the artist captures this reality beautifully in the next track. Sometimes I don't. Honestly, this might be the most relatable track on the album for me.
It's a deeply grounding track. It strips away any pretense of spiritual perfectionism.
The honesty here is so refreshing. She says, "Sometimes I bend my knees in prayer." Wait, let me rephrase that without the pause. She says, "Sometimes I bend my knees in prayer, and sometimes I don't.
The duality there is great.
Sometimes I take your name in vain, and I fail to take the blame." I look at this track like learning to ride a bike after spending your entire life being told you're fundamentally incapable of balance.
That's a really good analogy.
You get on, you pedal for a few feet, and then you crash and completely scrape your knees. She openly admits to stumbling, hiding in the dark, and failing. But the core chorus is the real revelation. "Despite everything I've done, you love me just the same."
From a psychological and theological standpoint, she is engaging with the concept of unconditional grace. And in doing so, she is completely rewiring her foundational understanding of love.
Oh, tell me more about that. Rewiring her understanding.
Think back to the environment of Baby Girl. Love was highly conditional and relentlessly transactional.
Totally.
Her worth was entirely dependent on her performance, her ability to please, serve, and stay quiet.
Right. If she made a single mistake, the threat was always that he might go away.
Exactly the opposite of what she's experiencing here. In this spiritual dynamic, she is actively failing. She is stumbling, struggling with accountability, and wrestling with her darkness.
Yeah, she's not being perfect.
But the response from the divine isn't abandonment. The response is consistent, unwavering love. This normalizes the duality of the human experience.
It lets her be human.
Exactly. It teaches her nervous system that her fundamental worth isn't something she has to earn through flawless execution. It is intrinsic.
Intrinsic worth. For someone coming out of that level of profound subjugation, realizing you can be messy and angry and flawed without being discarded, that is paradigm shifting.
It is the foundation for actual emotional safety.
And once you internalize that safety, you finally stop scanning the horizon for threats, which allows the artist to reach the resolution of this second act in track 7, "My soul rests in you." So what does this all mean for the story?
Well, this track represents the establishment of a secure internal base.
It really feels like the deep restorative exhale of the entire album.
Yes, that's exactly what it feels like.
The quicksand from Cry Out has completely solidified. She asks these deeply introspective questions. Who am I? Am I worth saving? She holds up her broken spirit and her past regrets.
She's taking inventory.
She is. But the resolution is absolute. "You cleansed my soul with redeeming love. You made me whole." She now refers to this connection as the rock on which I stand.
The usage of the word whole's arguably the most critical pivot point in the narrative so far.
Oh, really? Why whole specifically?
Because finding intrinsic worth, whether through divine love, spiritual grounding, or profound self-acceptance, is the absolute prerequisite for accepting healthy human love.
Ah, okay,
Yeah.
I see. Because if she had tried to jump straight from the trauma bond of addiction into a new relationship, even with a really good person, she likely would have just repeated the cycle.
Very likely, yes. She would have sought out another person to dictate her worth and fill the void,
Right.
which is precisely the danger. The classic rebound into the exact same dynamic because the internal subjugation schema hasn't been dismantled.
Wow, yeah.
But here, she has done the solitary, grueling work in the wilderness. She has become whole on her own in the sanctuary of her faith.
She learned her inherent value independently of what she can offer a partner.
Exactly. Only when a person is standing on that solid rock, only when they are fundamentally whole, can they safely invite another person into their life without defaulting to the trauma responses of their past.
She had to be fully rooted in herself before she could branch out toward anyone else. That is so powerful.
It's essential work.
But of course, the universe always presents a new test once we feel secure, right? It's one thing to feel safe in the solitary sanctuary of your faith and self-worth. It is an entirely different endeavor to look at another human being knowing full well the destruction human beings are capable of and say, "I'm going to try this again,"
It's terrifying.
which initiates Act 3, the hesitant return to love. Track 8 captures this perfectly. It's titled Heart in Your Hands.
This is the moment of the terrifying leap. It requires an immense amount of courage to intentionally dismantle the protection you've built.
Definitely. After surviving the crucible, aggressively fortifying herself in fierce, and finding solitary peace, handing her newly healed heart to someone else feels like stepping out onto a tightrope without a net.
That's a very accurate description.
The lyrics reflect that intense caution. She sings, "Love's a fragile thing, it's weak and it easily breaks in the wind." She isn't naive. She has the scars to prove how badly things can go wrong.
Right, she knows the risks.
But despite that, she makes a conscious choice. Now here I stand with my heart in my hands. What fascinates me here is the boundary she immediately establishes. Tell me your truth. I'll push down my pride. Give me your hand. I'll stand by your side.
Contrast this specific vulnerability with the dynamic in Baby Girl.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
In her past, she stayed quiet to keep a partner. She suppressed her truth, hid her tears, and slept at his feet.
She erased herself.
But here, she demands authenticity up front. Tell me your truth. Furthermore, she isn't offering subjugation. She's offering an egalitarian partnership.
I'll stand by your side, not beneath you.
Exactly. She acknowledges the very real fragility of love without allowing fear to dictate her behavior. She's willfully choosing connection over protection, which demonstrates profound psychological growth.
Doing it even when you are terrified is the definition of bravery. And when you take that leap and land safely, what does healthy love actually feel like to a nervous system accustomed to chaos?
That's the big question.
Track 9, Without, gives us that answer. And honestly, it is beautifully, surprisingly simple.
It focuses on the profound somatic experience of safety.
The lyrics paint such a quiet picture. I don't need starry skies, no poems or fancy rhymes. The night feels still in the darkest hours, in the perfect peace that is only ours.
It's very serene.
When you listen to these words, it brings up an analogy about nourishment for me. It's like eating a fresh, perfectly ripe piece of fruit after spending years of your life consuming nothing but chaotic, hyper-caffeinated junk food.
I love that analogy.
The junk food which mirrors the trauma bond in addiction. It spikes your blood sugar, sends your heart racing, and inevitably leaves you crashing on the floor.
And your entire system gets so accustomed to those extreme artificial flavors that regular healthy food actually tastes boring at first.
Exactly.
Your baseline for engagement is dysregulation.
But because she's done the detox work in the wilderness, she can finally appreciate the nourishment of the simple things.
Yes.
She realizes she doesn't need the dramatic, destructive highs. The quiet stillness is what actually sustains her. She concludes, "You're the one thing I can't live without."
Notice the specific environment she describes to illustrate this piece. She says, "I hear you breathing. You're finally asleep."
Oh, that's such a vulnerable moment.
Think about the level of hypervigilance she used to endure. The nights spent waiting, terrified of making a mistake, anticipating abuse.
She's constantly on edge.
Now, she is lying in the dark, a darkness that previously plunged her into madness, and she is experiencing profound peace.
Wow.
The parasympathetic nervous system has engaged. The dysregulated madness of toxic lust has been entirely replaced by the quiet, grounded confidence of genuine intimacy.
It's the stark contrast between a forest fire that burns everything to the ground and a hearth fire that provides sustained warmth.
Beautifully said.
And recognizing the value of that hearth fire leads her to commit to the long term, which we see in track 10, My Always.
This track is all about the integration of patience into the relational dynamic.
What stands out immediately is that this isn't an impulsive, light-speed romance. The lyrics highlight the deliberate pacing. If you forgive me for my past and open all the doors, nothing happens fast.
Nothing happens fast.
That phrase alone proves that they did the work. Trauma bonds happen instantly, but trust takes time. She also admits to her own defensive instincts. Tried so hard to run from you, afraid you'd see the truth.
Which is very normal.
Right. She almost let that hyper-independent reflex sabotage the connection, but they stayed the course. We weathered the storms of darker days and slowly washed the pain away.
The overarching psychological theme here is the overriding of silence through consistent communication.
Overriding silence, I like that.
The most crucial line is, "I heard the words you had to say." It illustrates a two-way street of emotional exchange.
Which she never had before.
Never. In her past, words were used to cut her, or she was forbidden from speaking entirely. Here, words are the bridge. He communicates, she listens. She communicates, he listens. It is a dynamic built on mutual respect and deliberate pacing.
That consistent patience from her partner fosters a deep sense of reverence,
Yeah.
launching us into the final phase of the album. Act 4, the culmination of healing, where she fully embraces this healthy love.
The grand finale.
Yeah. Track 11, My Heart Holds Its Breath, captures the sheer wonder of this arrival.
It is a beautiful expression of cautious awe, validating the role of a safe partner in the later stages of recovery.
The title itself is such an evocative metaphor. Have you ever encountered something so incredibly rare and fragile, like, I don't know, a wild bird landing near you, that you literally stop breathing?
Yes, absolutely. You don't want to ruin it.
Right. You are frozen in awe, terrified that any sudden movement will shatter the reality of the moment. That's the emotional landscape of this song. She sings, I never knew love could feel this way, so close to me and miles away. My heart holds its breath with every goodbye until next time we meet.
She is marveling that this kind of safety actually exists.
And she explicitly credits his approach. You saw the scars I tried to hide, the pain I buried deep inside. You took your time, you set the pace, saying true love is not a race.
That last line is so important. Healing from severe relational trauma is primarily an inside job. We saw her do that heavy lifting in the spiritual wilderness.
Right, on her own.
But there is a final, vital layer of healing that can only happen through co-regulation with a safe other.
Co-regulation.
By letting her set the pace and by seeing past her defensive disguises without demanding her subjugation, the partner proves his safety through action. He helps her rewrite her internal narrative of what an intimate partner can be.
Because that emotional safety has been so comprehensively proven, she is finally ready to reclaim the last piece of her humanity that was damaged in the crucible, her physical passion.
Yes.
This brings us to track 12, Come Closer, and I want to spend some time here because the lyrical parallels are just fascinating.
This is a highly significant track because it demonstrates the difference between repetition and reclamation.
Okay, when you look at the lyrics, they are intensely passionate. Baby, come closer, your body pressed to mine. Nights like these were meant to burn and break. And then she sings, lost all control, I want you so bad. Now wait a minute. Lost all control sounds dangerously close to the exact sentiment from Addiction, where she was craving his flesh and losing her mind.
It does.
A listener might hear this and think, are we slipping backward? Is she returning to the dysregulated trauma bond?
It is a vital question, and it speaks to the complexity of somatic recovery. The answer is that context dictates the psychological reality.
Context is everything.
In Addiction, the loss of control was entirely destructive. It was driven by a desperate, dysregulated hunger to fill an agonizing void. It was a trauma response disguised as lust that left her stripped of her agency and identity, broken on the floor.
Right, she was a victim to the biochemical drug of the abuse cycle.
Exactly. But in Come Closer, the loss of control is rooted in absolute emotional and physical safety.
How do we know that from the lyrics?
The differentiating lyric is, it's more than the fire. It's the way you make me. You're in my blood. You've touched my soul.
Ah, there it is. Touched my soul.
Because he has touched her soul, because he has proven his patience, honored her boundaries, and validated her worth, she is completely free to experience the fire of physical intimacy without any fear of being consumed by it. She isn't losing control because she is dysregulated. She is willfully surrendering control because she implicitly trusts the person catching her.
That is a profound distinction. Willful surrender versus dysregulated destruction.
Precisely.
She is reclaiming her sexuality not as a detached body being used, but as an integrated human being experiencing pleasure as a byproduct of genuine love. It is a healthy, joyful reclamation.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the grand finale of the album, track 13, Sanctuary of the Spirit and Flesh.
Such a powerful title.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this title alone represents the ultimate integration of her entire journey.
It marries the two disparate halves of her healing process. The spiritual awakening she found alone with the divine, which is the spirit, and the healthy, passionate human love she reclaimed with her partner, the flesh.
It brings it all together.
The lyrics read almost like vows of mutual protection. Be my place of sanctuary where my weary soul finds its rest. Protect my spirit and my flesh.
And observe the relational dynamics she firmly establishes here. What's mine is yours and what's yours is mine.
The equality there is so clear.
She is no longer the subjugated baby girl sitting quietly on the floor accepting scraps.
No.
She is also no longer the isolated, fierce warrior barricaded behind walls of rage, refusing to let anyone in. She has arrived at a truly egalitarian partnership. Mutual trust, mutual protection, mutual vulnerability.
The imagery she uses to close the album is incredibly cinematic. She says, "In an overwhelming sea of blackness, we stood perched high upon a ledge, staring down into seemingly endless depths.
It's very vivid.
The evil winds, they push, they pull at us. Fighting to gain balance, there's nothing that can ever harm us. We stand together. We'll never be alone."
That imagery encapsulates the ultimate realization of relational healing. She isn't pretending the world is suddenly a perfect, safe place.
No, the winds are still there.
The evil winds of life, of trauma, of hardship will always be there, pushing and pulling at the edges. The difference is that she is no longer facing those winds alone. And crucially, she is no longer facing them with an abuser who might use the wind to push her off the ledge. She is standing on the edge of the unknown with a true partner, actively fighting to maintain their shared balance.
She has completely integrated her gratitude to God for her spiritual healing with her devotion to her human partner. She acknowledges that her solitary faith made her whole enough to finally accept the sanctuary of this relationship.
It's a full circle moment.
I'll express my gratitude and devotion to God above for the gift of this everlasting abundance of love. It is a breathtaking conclusion to an incredibly dark and difficult journey.
It stands as a masterclass in narrative songwriting, yes, but also as a remarkably accurate roadmap of psychological and emotional truth.
It truly does. Which brings us to the end of our deep dive today. We have covered an immense amount of emotional terrain, starting from the cold floor of a broken, toxic relationship, wading through the suffocating quicksand of hyper-independence and spiritual searching, and finally arriving at the unshakable, windswept ledge of a true egalitarian partnership.
And the overarching lesson this artist proves through her storytelling is that healing isn't merely the act of leaving a bad situation. Escaping is only step one.
Just the beginning.
True healing requires the grueling, nonlinear, and often terrifying internal work to become whole enough to accept a good situation when it finally arrives. It is about fundamentally rewiring your nervous system to accept peace instead of chaos.
It's the profound shift from merely surviving to actually living. And as we wrap up our exploration of this incredible source material, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Take a moment to look at your own emotional map.
A little self-reflection.
Exactly. When you observe your own patterns, your own reactions, your own reflexes, do you recognize when your fierce independence is actually just a trauma response in disguise?
That's a hard question to ask yourself.
It is. Is the strength you project actually a defensive fortress designed to keep you from ever having to be vulnerable again?
And if you recognize those walls within yourself, the ultimate question becomes, are you brave enough to begin tearing them down? Such a good question.
Are you brave enough to step through the fear, risk the inherent fragility of trust, and allow yourself the opportunity to build a true sanctuary with someone else?
Because the messy, undeniable reality is that while the diagnostic x-ray of a broken heart will never give you a clean, simple answer the way a spirit knits back together, stronger, more resilient, and capable of holding so much more love than before, that is one of the most beautiful things you will ever witness. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Keep unpacking the world around you, keep asking the hard questions, and we will see you next time.